Welcome back to Raised by Giants discussion. We are live. Welcome everyone in the chat. Good to see you guys and any moderators and or channel members out there. Today we have with us returning guest and co-host Ryan Gable. But a quick reminder: the super chats and super stickers are available. And any super chat will be read out live during the show. And also PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description as well, and are a great way to help support the show. Couldn't do this without your guys' support. And the channel memberships are also available and are a fantastic way to help support the show monthly. And a huge thank you to everyone that's helped support so far. Really appreciate you guys. So with us today, we have returning guest, friend of the show, author, veteran radio personality, and producer of the show, The Secret Teachings on Ground Zero Radio, Ryan Gable. Welcome back to the show. It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too, Ryder. It's the first time we've spoken since that conference we went to, I believe.
Yes, it is, and it's always a joy and an honor and a privilege to speak with you, my friend. And today is a very special day, Ryan. Very special day. It's so special,
It's a special day
that I didn't even know that it was a day until today, which is the worldwide UFO day. And we're primed and we're ready to go. It's an amazing celebration of people just telling stories and sharing their experiences with UFOs. So we're going to have a little story time here today. And what I found really fascinating, and I Googled World UFO Day, and this was really funny to me, because up here in the right-hand corner of this, it says World UFO Day is an awareness day for people to gather together and watch the skies for unidentified flying objects. This day is celebrated by some on June 24th and others on July 2nd. They can't even agree on what day that they're supposed to be celebrating this, Ryan. The community is so fragmented that they can't even agree on the specific day that they need to be celebrating World UFO Day. Some say it's June 24th. Others say it's July 2nd. That's not a good representation of what the community is and how the community works. I don't know what is.
I wonder what the reason is for having the 24th as opposed to the 2nd, because I was thinking for a moment that it was Maury Island, which predated Roswell, but Maury Island, that incident was on the 21st. So maybe we should add the 21st to the list as well. Unless there's another major incident on the 24th, is there something we're missing? I thought it went Maury Island, Roswell, unless there's something in between that we're missing.
I think it went was it Murray Island first, or was it Kenneth Arnold's experiences first?
Well, Maury Island was on the 21st, Kenneth Arnold on the 24th. So I'm guessing that his sightings were the basis for that claim. But I think he investigated the Maury Island incident after the fact. But so it went Maury Island, and then what he saw, and then the Roswell incident. So I get that has to be why. So we really should have 3 days: 21st, 24th, and the 2nd.
Yeah, Kenneth Arnold was June 24th, 1947. And you said the Murray Island incident was when?
3 days prior, 21st of June. So Maury Island.
Where are they getting this this July 2nd date then?
Oh, it's July 2nd. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, July 2nd is today.
Maybe that's the I know I'm not sure where they get that from, unless it has something to do with the lead up to Roswell. Because if you read, my God, there are how many different versions of the Roswell story, and I think the real, for lack of a better term, Roswell scholars would say that there's an official timeline, and then there's just a bunch of other people that kind of make things up and exaggerate or don't really have the details. But if you read some of the original reports, right, there's different stories on what happened and when it happened. There's debris that supposedly laid in a field for multiple days. There were multiple parts of the area that had debris, like multiple crashes, and there were different days in which things happened, like when the thing supposedly crashed, when the debris was discovered, when the police or the military were finally contacted. So it's like a multi-day thing. So I'm guessing July 2nd probably starts off the Roswell incident, maybe when the object actually crashed, they estimate, and then later on, like this weekend is the Roswell Festival. Later on, the 7th or 8th is when we sort of mark the day that the military came out and said, we got a flying saucer. No, actually, it's a weather balloon. I don't know. It's the same thing actually about when we talk about Roswell, as like this is also the 4th of July week, right? As Americans who celebrate July, it's the same thing with the 4th of July. It's not like it's a conspiracy, but July 4th was only the day in which Congress read the first draft, or one of the first drafts, of the Declaration of Independence. July 3rd, the day before that, was when the first draft was prepared, and the July 2nd was actually Independence Day, really, because July 2nd was when Congress actually declared independence. Then they wrote a draft, then they read it, another day after that on the third, and then the 4th is when we celebrate it, but nobody really signed it until August 2nd. So it's kind of a similar thing to the Roswell incident. You have like the crash, and then you have like the reports, and then you have like the military shows up, then you have like the official story, then you have the other official story, and then it just all kind of gets jumbled. And then we say, well, we're going to pick a day to celebrate it. It's kind of a similar thing.
Almost all, like every single holiday ever. That's
Yeah.
kind of like what Christmas is. It's supposed to be the celebration of Jesus's birth, but Jesus was born in like
Probably
supposedly it's supposed to have been in the summertime or in the spring or late summer. It was around the summer months, like June, July, August, September area. So it's like, what are we doing there with that? So, Richard Doty said that that there was an archaeological team that was out there doing an archaeological dig near the Roswell crash, and that they got a report that something had fell out of the sky, and then they went to excavate the craft as well.
Oh, there was an archaeological dig.
Archaeological dig.
We know we can trust Richard Doty, so we're gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, he said an archaeological team was out there excavating when randomly the saucer crashed, and then they just skipped off to go investigate and dig and do an excavation of where the craft landed down or crashed down.
Your listeners know how well they can trust Richard Doty. Although I would say Richard Doty actually might be more credible than Corey Goode. So, like, genuinely, he might be more credible, because at least he mixes like true stories with fake garbage. That's how the counterintelligence people work. Corey Goode just made it all up, but that's a whole other story.
So, in light of this UFO day, regardless of whatever day you celebrate it on, because it wouldn't be right, Ryan, if we didn't share some of our experiences that we have probably never mentioned.
To celebrate the event?
Yeah, we got to be in celebration mode, dude. So, have you ever seen anything strange in the sky?
I have. I have seen a handful of things. Most of them I think I could identify after the fact. But if we're talking about UFOs that are completely unidentified, I think I've seen like maybe a handful. But I can also correlate those directly with military installations. Like I saw something very bizarre a very long time ago when I lived in Florida, when I was in the Tampa, St. Pete area. But there's also MacDill Air Force Base right there. I also saw a very strange exotic type craft. It was black and chevron shaped, similar to what Arnold saw back in the late 40s. And it was being accompanied by two, I don't know what type of fighter jets they were, but two U.S. military fighter jets. But that was also out at Rachel, Nevada, which is right across the way from Area 51. Maybe it was reverse engineered alien technology. I don't know, but I've never really seen anything out of the ordinary that wasn't over or near a military installation, personally. Now, I've had other paranormal experiences that I wouldn't be able to quantify in the same way, but for UFOs, those are my experiences. What about you?
It seems like it's all over military bases. Yeah, there's been a few kind of strange things that I seen whenever I was younger. I was really young, and me and my dad were driving back to our home that was about 8 miles outside of town. kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and we were getting ready to turn onto our road, and I remember this very vividly because we both seen it, and it was this thing that was hovering, I don't know, maybe not very high up off the ground, maybe 300 to 400 feet. It was like, it looked like arches almost. Like I describe it as like flying McDonald's arches is what it looked like. And this was in like the late 90s. And there wasn't really any drones. Drones weren't a thing at that time. At least people didn't know about drones at that time. And it just hovered there. And we literally looked at it from really far away. We stared at it all the way until we turned onto the road, and then we turned around and looked back at it, and it didn't move. It stayed in the exact same spot, like 300 to 400 feet up off of the ground. And then later on, me and my dad talked about it, and we were like, why didn't we just stop? Why didn't we pull over to the side of the road and get out and like look at this thing and look at it better? But that's one of my only experiences. And then 2 years ago in 2022, I was in Colorado, and we were having this get together, this little party, and one of the people that came to the party had these night vision goggles, and she whipped them out, and she was like, yeah, just scan around the backyard or whatever. So whipped out the night vision goggles, scanning around the backyard. And as I was looking through the night vision goggles, I seen this weird boomerang type looking craft thing. And as I was seeing it, I was mentioning it to everyone, because there isn't audio, can't be recorded on the night vision goggles. It's just video. And it was recording, and I was like telling them, and I'm like looking at this thing, and I'm trying to follow it as best that I can. And I'm like, hey, there's like a weird freaking boomerang just floating through the sky right now. And I was like, can you guys see it? And they were like, no, they couldn't see it with their naked eye. And then I don't think that they believed me. And I was like, nah, I'm really getting something on this night vision goggles. And then the next day, they ripped the video footage up off of the night vision goggles. And sure enough, it was right there. And I actually have video. I have that clip to play for you guys. I've played it one time before on the show with Chris Albeck, which was like, I don't know, like 2 years ago, almost, well, maybe like a year ago. I'm not too sure on the exact date of that show, but I played it on there. I posted it on my social medias, so it's been up there for a while. And Ryan, I don't know how I have not gotten famous off of this amazing piece of UFO footage. People have gotten famous for much less, but here we're going to watch this footage.
This is real, correct? This isn't. You're not joking. You're not making this up.
Not joking. This is 100% real. So you can see it coming in from the top left-hand corner. It's like in a boomerang V-shaped. That's
also the same type of craft. Like I think it was the Phoenix Lights in the late 90s. It was described as being just like that or similar to that.
And I try and follow it as long as I can. And I was telling them, I was like, hey, there's like a weird boomerang. There's some kind of weird V-shaped craft that's going across the sky. And this is really big. It can't be a bird. There's nothing flapping on it. It's just a V-shaped boomerang.
Yeah, so it's
craft.
It's not SpaceX. It's not a satellite. If you believe the satellites.
Then I lose it right there. It's gone. Went out of view.
What do you think it was?
I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. That's really why I didn't go any further with it or send it to people or, try and make a big deal about it, because I really don't know what it was. I mean, it could have been some kind of cloaked type of military craft. But I always think things are really strange and weird when they're only picked up in a photograph or they're only picked up in a video. format, because I was telling them as I was recording it what I was seeing, and I was like, "Can you guys see it?" And there was like 10 people standing in the backyard, and I asked them all. I was like, "Are you guys seeing this?" And I didn't want to give them the goggles because then they would have lost focus on where it was, and they would have been all over the place with it, and I would have not gotten that minute long footage that I did. And
Sometimes those things appear because they move very, like on video or photos, and we don't see them until after the fact because they move so fast or they're very faint. You're not really focused on it until you watch the hard, video or photograph after the fact. It's kind of strange because if you read about the lore of vampires or certain other supernatural entities, they don't show up in like a mirror or don't show up in a photograph. And these objects might show up in a photograph, but you might not see them outside of the camera. Just an interesting observation.
yeah, it's weird. I've always thought that I don't know what to make of things that can't be seen with the naked eye but show up on film. But that is 100% real footage. It was not edited, doctored, no filters were put over it. And the person that I got this from has the raw 100% real raw footage, and that's what that is. I just reprocessed it because I needed to put my little Raised by Giants watermark in the bottom right hand
Yeah,
corner.
so someone doesn't steal it and make $1 million off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you
But
think? I mean, what do you think? Has anybody ever looked at that, professional or otherwise, and said that they have an idea?
no, no one's ever commented on it. It's just kind of sometimes I forget about it actually. And then I was like, oh, hey, I have this really cool piece of footage that probably not a lot of people have seen.
You got to throw some other nonsense into it. Maybe people would watch it. It's funny because I'm sure that there are. This is where I get a little bit paranoid. I feel that through algorithms and through, well, modern technology, not to mention previous government programs, intelligence, military programs to intentionally disinform the public through media, through Hollywood, through Disney, and UFO groups, etc. But there's probably a lot of people in the world like you, Ryder, who have something like that, and it doesn't go viral, and nobody cares because your name's Ryder Lee. It's not Jeremy Corbell. It's not David Grush, right? And your video, I mean, in my opinion, from what I trust you, and from what I've seen that video one other time you played it for me, that's a hell of a lot more interesting than the jellyfish UFO that Jeremy Corbell showed. I'm not attacking Jeremy Corbell. I'm just saying that like the stuff that he shows, like those flares at the military base in 29 Palms, very clearly an altered video, very clearly flares, and they completely took the thing out of context. And he's smart. He had to have known he took it out of context. Had to have known that video was not what he said that it was. And yet that gets into the mainstream press, and yours doesn't. And it's not just you. There's a bunch of other people, I would imagine, somewhere in the world. There's probably a bunch of people in the United States and a bunch of other countries that have hard evidence like that, and nobody cares to see it because a certain person doesn't present it. Bob Lazar is not interested in your video, I don't think, Ryder, so nobody cares. That's the problem with a lot of this stuff. People say, where's the evidence at? Well, it's probably on hard drives of people like Ryder who, you don't really hawk it and you don't really chew it, and you don't really get it out there because you don't know what it is and you're not trying to sell something. I know that's my opinion. I feel like there's probably a lot of people that have really good evidence, a hell of a lot better than what the Navy's probably showing us, or a hell of a lot better than what Jeremy Corbell shows us every time he wants to make a few dollars on a UFO documentary. I mean, I feel like that's got to be the case.
It has to, and he also did the triangle craft UFO where the aperture of the camera was just in a triangle lens that made it look like that there was a flying triangle craft.
There you go. I know, and like the thing is, the guy's not. I don't think he's stupid, so he knows what he's doing, or maybe he's naive. I don't know. Again, I'm not attacking Jeremy Corbell. I just don't. I don't know why people like him can get away with video after video after video that can be disproven, and yet there are a lot of people like you who have things like that, and Nobody cares. Like I mean, it's purely speculative, but I bet you if you stopped Jeremy in the hallway of Contact in the desert this year when he had 5 camera angles on him, you know, and you said, "Hey, I want you to look at this video." I mean, I highly doubt he would have given a damn. And if he did, you know, what's he going to do? Is he going to put it into the next documentary? It's not his video, so he doesn't care. I mean, I think that's really what's wrong with ufology. And there's so many assumptions we have about this stuff. Like, oh, if someone had a camera, they'd take a picture. Well, there's probably a lot of those pictures, but we just don't believe they're real because there's too many Richard Doty's in the world.
That's true. I was so shocked. I think everyone that seen Jeremy Corbell at that conference, they were like, "What is going on right now, dude?"
It looked like
I guess
paparazzi.
They did. They were going through the conference, and he had like an entire freaking camera crew with him. He had a boom mic operator guy that was like in front of him, like running after him. Yeah. I was like, "What is going on right now?"
Yeah.
That was wild. But we're gonna do that next year with me, but it's gonna just be cell phones.
You know, I had one other experience that I wouldn't call it. I mean, I know that it traditionally would fall into the UFO category, but I don't know if I would call it UFO. I went to a campground. I think it was called it was something Bear Campground outside Monument Valley in Utah, southern Utah, and it's owned by this native family, and the guy that it was him and his sister that owned it. It was passed down generationally, and I stayed the night, and there was somebody else with me. And we both saw this. And then the next morning, the guy came over to see if we were okay, like if everything, the campground was nice, everything was okay before we left. And I said, yeah, I said, I'm just curious. Do you ever see anything weird around here? And then he described what I had seen the night before. And I hadn't said anything else to him. So I know that there's some relevancy to what I saw. What I saw was over this butte where the campground is. I saw this light come up from the butte, and then it moved back and forth very quickly. Something that you would see maybe like, you know, Fox Mulder saw at Area 51 or something in the X-Files, you know, or at a military base. It's these little lights going back and forth, and then they would go up and down. And the guy the next morning said he saw that stuff when he was a kid. He's always seen it, and they don't consider it, at least he doesn't, and his family doesn't consider it to be alien or extraterrestrial. He said he thinks that's their ancestors, that they're spirits, that they're not some kind of mechanical craft. They're not flying saucers. They're like orbs of, you know, spirits or the soul, which is traditionally like Carl Jung. There's a couple people. I think Carl Jung was one of them, talked about the circular spherical object and how that's a symbol. It's always been a symbol of the soul. So this is what this native guy and his family believed, that these little golden orbs, golden, yellow, white orbs, that they were basically their ancestors, and they were there protecting them. So I don't know if I'd call that a traditional UFO, because there's so much in association with flying discs and all that. But I saw that. That was like 3 years ago. I saw that. I don't know what my opinion is on it, except I take what he said into consideration very strongly, and I have no other context for it, so I can't say I believe it's that. But I don't think that it was a flying saucer, and I don't think that it was aliens.
Yeah, and that triggers another thought in my mind, because I had a experience probably over 3 years ago, where I walked out. I was working a graveyard shift, and I walked out into the backyard to take the trash out, and I walked around to the front of the building, and I seen these string of lights that came up out from behind the horizon, and then they moved up in like a 45-degree angle, and then they flattened out, and then they moved in a straight line across. But they weren't very far away, and the first thing I thought was, oh man, maybe this is like Starlink satellites or whatever, you know, whatever Elon Musk is doing. But they weren't that far away from me, and I thought that was really interesting, and I stood out there and watched them, like one at a time, come up at a 45-degree angle and just level out straight, and then just go right across, like for 15 minutes. There was like that many of them, just zoop, zoop, and going across. But they were like orbs. They were like balls of light,
Gold, yellow, white kind of light.
white and just straight white.
I guess that's kind of similar to what I saw. What do you make of
Yeah.
that?
I don't know. I don't know what that was. It was, I don't like talking about this stuff too much because like I'm not, trying to, monetize these experiences, and then speculating on about what they were just feeds other people's thoughts and theories, and then they think that they know more than you, and then they tell you what it was that you saw.
I personally know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Like, oh, that was the extraterrestrial gray ships from Zeta Reticuli that I've seen 24 times in my life whenever I was really young up until yesterday. I saw them, you know what I mean? And then that influences your thought process behind what you think that it was. So I think a lot of times
Could
it's
have
just about
been
stuff.
Could have been Dark Fleet TM. Could have been
Dark Fleet. Dark Fleet trademark.
Yeah. Or Light Fleet. Could have been one of the fleets.
One of the fleets.
Star Command.
Omega Fleet.
Omega Fleet, Star Command, the Empire, the Enterprise.
Deep Space Fleet.
Yeah.
Galactic Command 33 Confederation of Planets. Yeah. Never stops, dude.
I feel the same way that you do. That's why I don't normally talk about stuff like that too often.
But this is a special show, and we're
World UFO Day.
World UFO Day, baby. We can go wherever we want. We can talk about whatever we want here. This is a safe space. All right. What's some? You mentioned some paranormal experiences before. You just earlier you mentioned that you had some paranormal experiences, and I 100% believe in the paranormal. I think it's real. I think it may be more of a psychological condition than it is something physical outside of you that's manipulating things. I think if anything, it would be to infiltrate into your mind to alter your perception of reality, to give you the perception that something is going on. But that's just a kind of a different take on it. But is there anything that you would like to share that maybe you haven't talked about before that seems like that it was unexplainable, or that you have absolutely no idea what it was? Story time, baby.
Yeah, I have a very small number of select stories, nothing I thought about before the show tonight. And I think I've only talked about them 3 times, sort of outside of the closed walls of where I live. I mentioned them to you one time. I've mentioned them on 2 shows I did in the past, like a long time ago. And then recently, actually, a friend of mine called me and was talking to me about stuff like that, and I mentioned it to them. But other than that, yeah, I've never really talked much about these for the same reason as we discussed with the UFOs. But when I was a kid, I saw and have a very vivid, clear memory of a handful of things, some malicious, or at least that was my interpretation, and some a little more benevolent, not so malevolent, not so malicious. I saw things that also were not very defined, sort of like a black, misty sort of entity, spirit. I don't know what you'd call it. I have no idea what to call it, but I've seen things like that. I think the most well-defined thing that I would think that listeners would understand is a series of things that I saw at my great grandma's house up in West Virginia, where you're from. I was in Terralda, which is outside Morgantown, well, very far outside Morgantown, outside Kingwood. And I was in the room with my sister when I was very young, and I vividly remember this. And I was laying in bed. There's 2 beds, laying in bed, and the beds are facing the back of the house where there's like a closet. It was a big room, big house, big room. And there was a closet, which could have doubled as a second room. That was kind of a walk-in closet where they had put a lot of stuff for storage. So sitting or laying in the bed and facing that way, I remember seeing this almost etheric but some sort of there but not there defined humanoid form in the corner. And it was black, all black. And it had on what I could only describe as what people would say are the suits of, the men in black. And it had no face, which is now what we would maybe call, people would say that's Slender Man. And it had a hat on, which is what most people would call Hatman, what Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, was running away from. And it stood there, and I can still see it today. It's really scary. But at the same time, I knew that it wasn't really going to do anything to me, but it was very disturbing that I'm looking at this thing that now, years later, I think it was probably 2012, so probably about 12 years ago, I was reading a book by Nick Redfern, and this was me, 3 years out of high school. So I was reading a book by Nick Redfern, and I came across those stories of the Hatman, and I thought, oh my God, that's exactly what I saw when I was a kid. And the only person I told that to was, I said to my mom the next morning down at breakfast what I had saw, and my mom just vehemently denied it. And I remember my grandma explaining to me what she used to see, because that used to be her room. We were at my great grandma's house, and this was, her daughter, my grandma. And my grandma explained to me the exact same thing that I saw the night before. And so when I have that vivid memory, and then my grandma confirms it for me, and then many, I was a kid, I was very young. And then like way later, like a decade later at least, but now 10 or so years ago, 12 years ago, I'm reading this book, and here's a description of exactly what I saw as a kid that was corroborated by my grandma in the same spot, in the same room that she grew up in. So those things, I think, validated that for me, validated it in the sense that I have no idea what it was. I would describe it as the Hat Man, and I would describe it as very scary, especially for a child. But what exactly it was, I have no idea. And I don't think anybody in the world, no paranormal researcher, we might have people that get close to developing a theory, but nobody really knows what that stuff is. And we're talking pre-internet. We're talking these stories have been told globally for a very long time, pre-international travel, pre-internet, pre-cell phones. So these are universal, which makes me think that what we're dealing with here, just like with UFOs, is a universal awareness, a universal, like the sun. It's universal. Everybody interacts with it. So you don't need some sort of continental travel or intercontinental travel or, big ships to traverse the oceans or spaceships or planes or anything like that to get around the world. Everybody sees the sun, and they develop their own mythos from the sun and the moon and, the rain and the wind and all the things that naturally happen. We all develop, different gods and goddesses. We develop different myths and stories. And I think these are things that are slightly out of the realm of the physical, but they're things that people have experienced for so long that we find these stories in virtually every culture. We might just, call them something different, whether it's something sort of abnormal, like a thought form, that Jews have the golem, the Tibetans have the tulpa, and European alchemists had various names for similar thought forms, or universally that idea was they were like some kind of air spirit, which then also ties in with UFOs and aliens and the manifestation of these things. And then, as a kid too, I would imagine, I'm a little bit more open to suggestibility, but a little bit more open also to, for lack of a better way to describe it, the spiritual realm. And that gets more solidified as you get older and you lose contact with that. And then this was also in the middle of the night. I always had trouble sleeping, so it was a good chance that my brain's producing some of those chemicals, and I'm in a different place, and I'm scared kid. I'm nervous, and I manifest and see this thing. My sister, I don't think ever saw it, but I saw it. So, it's probably a combination of a lot of things, and the psychology of that, I think, Ryder, is one of my most favorite things. I think that really describes what we're dealing with. My final comment on that, to wrap my thoughts up, are that it's like when you look at a gray alien, people on the Discovery Channel ancient aliens. I mean, you've probably heard the gray alien described as being sort of fetus-like. It's like an undeveloped, human. No hair, the eyes, the mouth, the ear. If it has a mouth, the ears. It's not fully developed, so it's fetal-like. I think that's sort of, it's like an unconscious projection of us, because those little gray aliens want the same thing. They don't want to blow up the world with nuclear weapons. They don't want to pollute the planet, and that's what we want. And I think it's kind of like the homunculus in alchemy. So there's a whole string of connections here. But to summarize my point, that's probably my most memorable experience. And providing all that context, I do that so that listeners can understand that it's not just some story that I'm telling for awe. Like, I'm trying to provide context and be objective about it to explain that I don't know what this was, but if you study it like I have long enough, and you've had those experiences, which probably inspired me to do the studying in the first place, whether I know that or not, there's definitely something there. And I wonder how many people listening have had similar experiences. And I wonder, I think you've told me, but I wonder what your experiences are. If you've ever had anything like that happen or something else.
Yeah, if anyone has had any of those experiences, please let us know in the comments for sure. Jenna Banana says, my favorite. How's it going, Banana? Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a minute. My favorite so far is, of course, the banana-shaped UFO. She literally has a video of a banana-shaped UFO that she sent me. It's only in like 3 frames. I wish I could pull it up, but I don't have Facebook logged in on this computer. But it looks like a banana. She's like, she's driving in her vehicle, and she has her phone out, or a camera or whatever, and she's filming, and this thing just like passes right by the front of the car. And whenever it's slowed down and you see the frames of it, it looks like a flying banana. It's wild.
Isn't that something that's also described in a lot of the UFO lore? Jacques Vallée documents a lot of strange UFO cases in his, A Passport to Magonia book. But there are cases where these strange, not a banana, but something equivalent to a banana lands in a farmer's field. It's like an egg, lands in the field, or maybe that's how they just describe it. But these weird, bizarre craft that just don't make any sense. And there's actually a lot of cases where if the craft's not bizarre, the people that get out of the craft are like, yo, can we get a piece of toast? Can we have like some peanut butter? Like, they ask for, kind of like Men in Black, ask for really strange things. So I don't know, maybe there's banana UFOs or something like that, but that's really interesting.
There's something. She's got some kind of footage of a banana UFO. It's wild, but wasn't there like stories of like fish, like raining fish?
Charles Fort stuff?
Yeah, was that Charles Fort?
Yeah,
was talking about that?
I got his Book of the Damned right here, and it documents, he's got a bunch of books, but it documents all these cases of things like that, stuff falling out of the sky, gold coins, insects, insects, falling fish. I don't know if he talks about the different colors of snow, but there's like multicolored snow and stuff, all kinds of stuff like that.
I think there was a turtle one too, where turtles just fell out of the sky. A bunch of turtles.
Probably because of some type of weather phenomenon. That's happened. Happens with scorpions during dust storms here in Arizona, things like that.
Yeah, as far as things that happened to me when I was growing up, I've spoken about it a couple of times before, that I would see beings come out of the walls late at night when I was sleeping with my parents in the room, like faces. I would literally see them coming out of the walls. They would surround me and like look at me all night. And I think that's what made it to where I didn't I couldn't sleep. I think that was some of the first things that happened. And I've always liked nighttime. I'm always like to sleep in really late, and I've always been like that, and I probably will never change. Hate waking up early, but that, and there's a few other things that were really interesting that I was thinking back on. It was like whenever I was younger, like whenever I was growing up, you used your imagination a lot, and I took martial arts when I was younger, and I would like beat up like pillows and stuff, like pretending that they're like people. I would play like, you know, Dragon Ball Z with pillows, or then I was fighting ninjas or like whatever, and like I would throw them and like throw up pillows and kick them, or like punch pillows or whatever. And I would also do that with grocery bags, right? I would throw up like grocery bag and let it fill up with like the air, and then like I would see how many times I could like hit it, and when it would make that like swishing sound, like if you like hit like a grocery bag or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember laying in bed at night, and I would hear that noise of the grocery bag like being hit. It was the weirdest, strangest thing ever, but no one was awake. It sounded like it was happening in the kitchen. And I'm like, what is going on here? And it was like something was mimicking what I
Like
was
what you
doing.
had done.
Yeah. Maybe like an energy impression or an energy overlay or something like that. But I thought that was really interesting. And really, that's about it as far as like weird and strange things happening when I was a kid. Now, I've had some very interesting paranormal experiences later on in life in some of the most haunted locations in the world, like Waverly Hills Sanitarium in Louisville, Kentucky, Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia, Moundsville Penitentiary in Moundsville, West Virginia, the Rectory in Cincinnati, Ohio, the Prospect Place in Transville, Ohio. So, I mean, I've had some really strange paranormal experiences. I've never really seen a lot. Again, it's been like hearing strange things, feeling strange things, and like a psychological effect of like being in like a certain location. But one time I was with my dad and a group of a few people, and we were investigating Waverly Hills Sanitarium in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a huge freaking facility. It's like 5 stories and it has like a balcony and everything. And we're on the 3rd floor. We're at the end of one of these wings because how the building is set up. It has like this long, straight, narrow part, and then it has 2 wings on the backside. Mm-hmm. And we're on the left-hand side all the way down. It's close to one of the exit doors, but the exit doors doesn't open. There's no electricity to this place. We're standing probably in the middle of the hallway on the wing to the left, and there's 5 of us standing in this hallway. We're the only people on this wing because the way the investigations work, they only let a certain amount of people on each floor, and there's no way to get out. The only way that you can get out is if you go down to the basement and then you go through this tunnel and you go back to the main hub of this building. There's no other access to the entire facility. And we're standing there, and all of us literally see, because there's corridors on either side of the hallway for patients. It was a tuberculosis hospital. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Waverly Hills Sanitarium, but it was an old tuberculosis hospital. And the way that it worked back in the day was that the doctors thought that they could cure tuberculosis by having open rooms that the sun could shine in, and they would get natural air into them. So the whole front part of the building is like open, and the back part is like kind of closed in. There was like doors and stuff there. We're standing in the middle of the hallway, and we're all looking down the hallway, and simultaneously we see each room on both sides of the hallway light up with light. And it's like something is flipping on a light switch in each one of these rooms, and it gets halfway to us. And then the entire hallway is just completely lit up. Every room on both sides of the hallway are lighting up simultaneously, one after the other. It's like someone's just flipping on breaker switches.
I assume that this place had electricity, right?
No, no electricity running to the
no
building.
electricity. Okay.
No electricity, no light bulbs, nothing. It's like completely empty building. There's nothing in it. And it gets halfway to us, and then simultaneously it just all goes out at the exact same time. And like I'm like elbowing my dad. I'm like, yo, are you seeing this? Like, what's going on? I'm like shocked. Like I don't know what is
Yeah.
going on. And we all see it. There was 5 of us there. We all said the exact same thing as to what happened. So that's one of my favorite ones.
Well, you were obviously with somebody when that happened too, so it's not, that it's not just your imagination or that you misremembered something because you were with someone else when that happened, someone close to you, which I don't know if that's better or worse in terms of verifying things like this, but I think a lot of people have probably had experiences like that and they don't know what to make of them. And I wonder if that's part of the reason that there are so many, I would just call them con artists in these fields, because they know that most people have experienced something like this, and most of us are looking for answers, and science doesn't really provide us with answers. So if you fabricate a story and you prey on people who have had experiences that are, I would say, legitimate, for lack of a better word, people are looking for answers. People want to believe, they want to try and understand. And I think that's why we get taken for a ride. So we have to sort of be careful, where we get our information from.
And that's why I don't like talking about any of that stuff because, again, people are just going to throw in their own 2 cents on it and then try and relate it to something else that they've heard, something that they've probably never even experienced, something that they've watched on a TV show, and then make it out to be that they're the ones that, came up with it, or they're the ones that did. And then it just creates a snowball effect of like nonsense. And then those ideas get projected onto you. And then before you know it, you're believing that you were in a 20 back secret space program, and that you're age regressed, and that you fought aliens in space for 20 years.
It's that quick, just like that snap of a finger. You need to go to one of those mental asylums.
Yeah. And then they want you to, pay them money to tell you what you experienced. Like, no, bro, like I know what I experienced, and I don't really care to know what it was. It literally makes no difference to me what it was. I just don't care. And if more people had that kind of outlook on it, I don't think we would have a lot of these problems that we do in this
Interesting
community.
point. Interesting point. Well, I mean, that's sort of, I wouldn't say exactly, but that is more and more how I've been approaching a lot of the subjects I discuss on the Secret Teachings, is by clarifying with the audience that what I'm doing is I'm not trying to convince you of an idea or convince you of an ideology or a belief system. I'm simply presenting. I mean, I have my own opinions, of course, but I present information, and then you make what of it what you will. And I'm just going to show you, here are the records, here's the documentation, here's a date, here's an article, and you do with it what you will. But those kinds of experiences, I mean, I know people, or I've known people in my life who have had experiences like that. They don't want to talk about them because they either are afraid of sounding crazy, or I think a lot of times people are afraid of sounding not crazy. And it's like, you don't want to believe. Just as many people that want to believe, there's a lot of people that don't want to believe, because it changes your whole perception of the world. Like everything you've ever been taught or you've assumed is true, if you believe that this is happening to you, then you have to reassess all of that. And that's particularly difficult for religious minded people. Nothing wrong with that, but it's particularly different for religious minded people, which is why when they see and experience things like that, they attribute it to God, angels, demons, or the devil. And they're probably not wrong. But it's interesting. We've always said it's interesting how, depending on how you grew up, or what your interests are, you have the same exact experience. And the way that, I describe the Hatman might sound like the devil, to some people. To me, I don't know what it was, because I don't have, I'm not coming at it from a religious or a ufological or a certain, point of view. It's just, there it is. I don't know what it is. Trying to find other people who have heard the same story or have experienced something similar,
Well,
have their own
didn't
story.
Didn't Injured Cold have a hat, and wasn't he wearing a suit too?
It was like Men in Black, yeah. And he asked for like the pin. People always made a big deal about how he, acted. Men in Black act very strange, very similar to those weird cases of these beings getting out of UFOs and fields and being awkward and asking for strange thing, or to us strange things.
Noble Truth brings up something really interesting. I hope he's being serious. I had one fight with me, the Hatman Ryan. He says, I ended up on my knees bowing. I've heard that before. I've heard one of my friends growing up said that happened to him. He had an encounter with the Hatman, and he ended up on his knees, like reciting like the Lord's Prayer or something, and then it went away. And then it never came back. And then Noble also said never saw him again.
If you use that terminology, if whether it's Lord's Prayer or Jesus Christ or whatever, I mean, it works if you believe that it works. I think doesn't mean that you're dealing with strictly theological things. It's just you have this very strong belief. I mean, I'm not Christian, but I've used those terms before too. I'm not a practicing magician, but I also have like ritual instruments. I find it interesting, and I like to learn about things and possess those things. But yeah, those terms, or Jesus Christ, the Lord's Prayer, or whatever it is, like it's very powerful. It works. I mean, if you open up the Bible, it's like that the TV show Ted. You don't know if you saw the TED TV show where they're looking through the Bible. Hey, he's like, turn to the spells. That's the spells. It is. It's just it's a bunch of spells and incantations and things like that.
I watched. You're talking about the series on Peacock, Ted?
Yeah, the TV show. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched like the first 3 or 4 episodes. I thought it was really funny, but then I kind of forgot about it.
Oh, maybe you didn't see the one where they were looking at the Bible. That was really funny. But yeah, it has power.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's because of an egregoric type of reality, because people has put a lot of good energy into the name of Jesus and good energy behind the Bible, that it somehow works in that type of fashion. I mean, that seems more common sense and critical thinking to me, that people over generations and generations of people have put nothing but good and positive energy behind the Bible and behind Jesus's name and behind the Lord's Prayer, that because it doesn't really make any sense that a certain verse would work against like everything. Like what if it's a Muslim demon?
Well, it's
like,
because
would you have to recite the Muslim equivalent of the Lord's Prayer?
It's a good question. I think it's because, yes, one, it's egregoric, and that's partly, it's completely, but also partly a matter of what you believe works, which I think is part of the egregore. But I think another part of it is, just like we said earlier, whether you're Muslim, Christian, or something else, we're all dealing with the same exact forces. We just, from our own perspective, see them differently from the way that we were raised, the language we use. And I think one piece of evidence that that's the case is that, the name Jesus is not at all close to the original name of that character, of that person. There was no J in Hebrew, so they didn't call him Jesus. His name was closer to Yeshua, and then in Greek it would have been Ishas, and very close to Zeus, and then that became Jesus. So, I mean, if you were laying in bed at night and you said, Yeshua, protect me, probably not going to have the same effect. If you were to say, Zeus, protect me, probably not going to have the same effect. If you say Jesus, has the same effect because you believe it. It's egregoric, yes. And then when you compare that to like this idea of the ancient world, and there's all these different demons and supernatural forces that people interact with on a daily basis, and God is talking to people, Jesus would not have been the name that was used at the time. So it's not the name itself per se; it's the energy, the essence that you put into it.
That makes sense to me. That's what I think, and that's what I've kind of always thought, that that's what's going on. Is egregoric, the belief in the energy that's put behind the word as manifested in a positive light, which therefore helps
Yeah.
people in their time of need.
Yes, I think so. Oh, I think we should also mention, as we're just about out of time, do you mind if I mention one thing about Roswell?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking today, and I did my show on this, that the Roswell incident, I was trying to make my show topical, and I'm going to be at the festival this weekend if anybody else is going to be there. But the Roswell incident is, the object that crashes, and then we recover it, and then we use reverse engineering to develop technologies from the reverse engineered craft, or the technology in the craft. And the whole narrative around this is like they had Velcro and lasers and all this other stuff from the craft, right? So it's very similar to the idea of, the storyline, the arc of the story of Jesus, right? Jesus comes into the world, and then Jesus, has a down point where he's beaten and crucified to a cross, and then he's buried, and then he's resurrected. They go to try to find his body, find where the crash happened. They find find that he's missing, and then Jesus is resurrected, and then he, blesses those who believed in him, and then says that, when I return, at a point in the future, people will be saved if you believe in me, and that's the story. It's very similar. That idea is very similar to Roswell or any of these other incidents. It's all part of the narrative of the myth of the sun. The sun comes up, moves across the sky, it crashes, and then we go and we find where that crash happened so we can rescue and preserve the necessary elements of the sun, which is why we have the sun. That's why the sun's on all the Egyptian gods and goddesses. It's why the sun is such an important symbol in the ancient world, as it is today, because we wanted to preserve its essence, hoping that it would come back the next day. Not that simple. They knew it was going to come back, but it was sympathetic magic. So the disk rises, it crashes, we preserve it, and rather than getting technological blessings, we get the blessings of life and warmth and light. So I think that whether it's the sun, or it's the sun, S-U-N, or S-O-N, or it's Roswell, the Roswell crash, we're dealing with the same motifs here.
Absolutely, the archetypical manifestation of things that has been happening since the beginning of time.
You got it.
Over and over again. Noble Truth says, I took excessive amount of pills that night. I was 19, and that's when I fought it. As difficult as it was to mention, I highly believe that I'm protected. Yeah, I'm interested to hear if anybody else has had any experiences with the Hatman in the comments, because it seems to be a very common, well, not so much common, but there's several documentaries on it. People have made documentaries on the Hatman. A lot of people have claimed to have these types of experiences, and like my friend growing up was telling me that exact same thing pretty much happened to him as well. Noble Truth. But before we go, I want to play this. I want to play the UFO clip one more time, and if anybody wants to make me famous off of this clip of this weird, strange boomerang-shaped craft that I recorded in my backyard with night vision goggles in 2022, please hit me up. Please come through. Send me an email, raisedbygiants@outlook.com. Let's get this thing out there, guys. Now is the time. Now is the time on World UFO Day to make Ryder Lee famous.
Support the movement.
From his footage of the strange boomerang-shaped flying V craft that was captured in May of 2022 in my backyard, that had several witnesses that seen it and can corroborate that this evidence is 100% real, and I captured it and I seen it as it was happening through the night vision goggles.
Okay. We need to find somebody who can remote view the obvious aliens that are on board that ship.
Yeah, I guess that's probably what I needed to say. I needed to say that I was in telepathic communication with the occupants of the craft as I was seeing it. It was downloading information directly into my brain about all the knowledge and all the secrets of the universe. And I'm coming out with a new book next week. So please buy that. And that's where I'll be revealing that top secret information that I got from the aliens in the craft that night in May of 2022 that I filmed.
2 words you forgot: star seed. You got to throw that in there, and you're golden.
Starseed, crystalline, 12-strand DNA activation.
Someone get Laura Eisenhower in here.
The cosmic wars. What did she say? The electric wars.
Electric wars. Yeah.
Electric wars.
Yeah. They're like the Gear Wars from Rick and Morty.
Dang, bro, you don't know about the electric wars, bro? Come on now.
She called one of the aliens the Aquafarians. I thought that it was strangely similar to the Aquafina water bottle that she had, but that was just me.
Aquafarians, the electric wars, the Orion wars, the Lemurian wars, the Atlantean wars.
There's a whole bunch of aliens, Dasanians, the Gatoradeites. There's a whole bunch of them.
Poweradites.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan. Thanks so much for coming on, brother. I hope everyone enjoyed story time here today. I thought it was a fun show and a way to celebrate World UFO Day on July 2nd, 2024. This one is going to go down in history as one of the best UFO days in recent times. One of the best World UFO Days on a podcast, even though we're not together. It's been amazing, my friend, and thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time this evening. Let people know where they can find you online.
Yeah, we should, we should do something instead of World Star Hip Hop. We should have World Star UFO or something, and people can upload all their videos and stuff like that. My my website.
Do you remember that Ring? Do you remember what was the controversy with the Ring camera? Didn't you send me a video recently of something weird that was captured on a Ring camera or something like that?
No, I didn't.
We weren't talking about that? I thought for sure we talked about that.
Mentioned it. Well, there was like a UFO or an alien, whoever can capture an alien on the Ring camera. There was like a contest.
Yeah, but what triggered that? Something that someone sent.
I don't remember, honestly.
Then I said, "Oh no, this is one." Maybe it wasn't you, but I remember talking to you about it. That the Ring camera did like a contest to see who could fake the most outrageous alien or UFO thing, and it would win like money. Yeah. And then now some of that footage is coming out and being used within the community as like real footage.
It never ends. Jesus Christ.
That might not have been you, but I remember mentioning it to you. It might have been about the person that sent me some kind of footage, and then I was talking to you about that footage, and I was like, "Oh no, this is fake Ring camera footage," because they did a contest a few years back. But anyway, go on with where they can find you.
Yeah, the secretteachings.info is my website. There's social media, email, the free archive, my books, all of that's on the website. Even if you don't listen to the show Monday through Friday, that archive is there on that site. But if you want to listen to the show, it's groundzero.radio, and it is on at 10 p.m. Pacific. Tonight, I am talking about this subject. I'm going to go into the history of the archetypes and the metaphors and all of that about UFOs. Thank you so much, Ryder, for having me on. I'll also be at Roswell this week if anybody's going to the festival. But otherwise, fun story time show. Happy World UFO Day. Happy 4th of July.
It was a doozy. Thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone in the chat. Appreciate your time, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel and the algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. Hope you guys had an amazing day and probably won't see you before July 4th. So happy July 4th. Appreciate each and every single one of you. Sign up to be a Ryder Ranger member. The link is in the description of this video. And also watch JFKX on Tubi. It's out on Tubi now for free. You don't have to pay any money to watch it on Amazon Prime. You can just type it right into Tubi, JFKX, and watch our documentary. We're currently working on documentary number 2, and we'll have some news and some really great updates on that coming very soon. The shows might kind of slow down here for a little while I'm working on the next documentary, but I'll see you guys next time. Hope you guys have an amazing week. Thanks so much, Ryan. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.